Peacemakers, we're going to transition here. Peacemakers is a really neat thing that we had a training time here a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, that it's all about making peace in a real biblical way. And Gail kind of leads that up for us in the whole area also, and we want to have her just share a few things about that.
It's because I have so much conflict in my life. I saw that many of you said that you have friends. You just asked, do you have friends? Well, if you have friends, if you're in leadership, guess what you have? Conflict. And if you don't, see me afterwards. But I want to give you 7 words that's going to change your life. These words will change your life. Conflict is an opportunity to glorify God. And I never looked at conflict that way until I learned the biblical peace-making principles and learned that framework and how to do that. And I was so excited when Dane and Jeff said I could come tonight and share with you about peacemaking. I think the first said, we're teachers, and he just kept going on. Mike, he kept saying, we're teachers, we're teachers. Well, we also have another ministry, and I'm going to read this to you from 2 Corinthians. It's 2 Corinthians 4:14. It says, for Christ's love compels us, because we are convinced that one died for all, and therefore all died. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. So from now on we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is gone, and the new has come. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. We're all ministers of reconciliation. And what I want to share with you is that we have DVDs, 8-week series, Peacemaking Principles, that you can use in your ABFs, your home ABFs, that Ken Sandy leads you through these principles. And it also has a small workbook. And the workbook is not something that you take home and study on your own. You take this workbook, and when Ken presents this 20-minute segment, you fill in the blanks, and then you go out and you apply these principles to your life and any conflict that you face. It's life-changing. And Stephanie's passing around biblical peacemaking principles. I have a brochure for each one of you, because most often what we do when there's conflict, we either avoid it and look like a pleasant Christian with a smile on our face, or we attack, and that usually looks like gossip, or it looks like leaving the church and going somewhere else and taking our conflict somewhere else. This will help us, give us a framework on how to deal with conflict biblically. So the brochure kind of gives you an overview, and then there's also a little survey that if you're interested in all learning more about this, we can provide the DVDs and I can answer questions. So thanks.
You know, you will need this year, right? It doesn't take long in community to figure out, oh my gosh, we have some tension here. And what peacemaking can help is help you learn how to navigate that well, and so that there's a great outcome, because pain and conflict actually is a good sign that relationships are healthy, that are actually at the point where they can actually be healthy, right? If you've ever made up with somebody and rectified a problem, the relationship's much tighter. That's the hope. So thanks, Gail, for leading in. Debbie's going to come up and share a few things. She has a stapled white handout, right?
They probably have it by now.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Before we look at the handout, I noticed the resource table back there with some excellent choices. I'm going to recommend a book for next time.
Awesome.
This is written by Gary McIntosh. Beyond the First Visit, The Complete Guide to Connecting Guests to Your Church is an excellent resource, not only for connecting guests to the church, but to your HABF or your ABF. Some very practical things in here. One of the things that Gary talks about is a 2-year study he did with the church on their guests. And in that 2 years, 197 guests came. And in that 2-year period, only 2 stayed. He asked the church at the beginning of this study what they thought was their best, the best character of their church, and they said, we're a friendly church. Well, why is it 195 people didn't think it was very friendly? And he came up with the inside-outside principle. It's the perception. We all would say, yes, we're a friendly ABF, we're a friendly HABF, but that's because we know each other. Those coming in from the outside don't see it that way. And we have to remember that as they walk through our doors. And so remember the perception of a guest wanting to get connected, otherwise they wouldn't have tried it out. And then what our response to them. The handout that I gave you, first of all, I am an advocate of Facebook. Consider it. I was thrilled to hear what Chip was talking about. What a great way for ABF to get connected to each other. The privacy issues, I'm not a techie, but from what I understand, the privacy issues are strong with Facebook. And it is a good thing. Right, friends back there, those two? Your handout, we're just going to look at the front page. Dane asked me to give you 3 takeaways. The first one, in worship service and in the hallways, please look for people you do not know. We do not know if they're a guest or not, but we all have people we do not know that we can speak to. And you've heard in the past that 3-minute rule. It takes a person after a service 3 minutes or less to decide if they're going to come back to worship at our church. 3 minutes or less. And the way they judge that is friendliness, and the way they judge that is how many people have spoken to them before they reach their car. So if you look for people you do not know and strike up a conversation for only 2 or 3 minutes and try and relationally connect with them, find out some commonality between you that you can talk about. And then the next step, of course, invite them to your community. Invite them to your ABF or HABF. Take that step. Leaders set the tone for this. Your ABF is watching you to see if you do this well. And it will help them to gain courage and do it themselves. So please, please do this. Dane even said it earlier. People follow good leaders. Pastor Larson, you all see him in the hallways. He does this so well. And that gives us courage too, to take that step to talk to people we do not know. Class or home, number 2. Be sure you have at least 2 people who do this naturally, but tell them that they are an intricate part of welcoming guests, so that when guests walk through the doors, they are there with them. And the end result of any contact is a feeling, positive or negative, about your ABF or HABF, and then even your entire church. If no one speaks to them, if no one sticks with them throughout that hour or that time you're together, they're going to walk away saying, I was not wanted. So, number 3, introduce that guest, introduce that person to others within your group. That's how to make this place be smaller. The more people you know, the smaller it gets. And so as your guest connector or your connecting partner gets to talk to the guests, they learn. They live in Talmadge, for instance. Well, Susan Smith over here lives in Talmadge. Let's go talk to her. I'd love for you to meet Susan. And now all of a sudden the guest has met a new person, another new person. So introduce to each other. The average guest simply does not have the desire or personality to fight his or her way into the social networks of the chapel or of any church. Helping guests feel welcomed is the responsibility of us, not them. So thanks very much for doing this, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jeff.